If you want to support the Missing Witches Project, you can do so by buying our book, reviewing it on Amazon and Goodreads, using offer code Missing Witches when you shop at Foxglove Farm. Become a Patreon patron or pick up some Missing Witches merch at TeePublic.
You aren't being a proper woman, therefore you must be a witch. You must be a witch.
Oh, hi, Gorge! It's like you haven't aged at all, and I've aged 100 years.
No way! Oh my god, you look amazing. I just switched it so I'm not looking at myself. Oh my god, it's so good to see your face.
You too. What a joy and a delight to be universally, cosmically brought together in this.
I'm already tearing up, Amy. Oh my god. I'm ridiculously emotional lately, and I'm just it's you. Oh my god.
Yeah, I was maybe this will make it into the episode, maybe it won't, but I guess I'll just launch in. We can do our introductions in a minute, but something came up in Facebook memories the other day that was a picture that Lisa had taken at me and Trey's apartment. And I assume it was Halloween because we were all in costumes, but not necessarily.
Who knows?
And you were in this Gaia, Mother Earth kind of vibe costume. It was yeah.
Yeah.
And then a garland of a wreath on your head. And I was like, this is too perfect. I'm going to have to go and re-dig it up so I can put it in the show notes, if you don't mind.
Amazing. No, that was yeah, I totally remember that photo because Lisa and I had gotten into tie-dyeing lingerie, and that was a tie-dye piece from that time. But yeah.
Yeah, I if you haven't gone through a tie-dye phase in your life, might I recommend that you do it now?
Yeah.
There's just...
Yeah. You haven't lived.
Yeah. When I had my tie-dyeing frenzy, I swear there was not a white item left in my house. I was scrounging and hunting for anything I could boil.
Yeah. No, I hear you. And those were good days because you could buy anything at Goodwill for 10 cents, 50 cents.
Actually.
Yeah. Lisa and I actually made a ton of money at Edgefest selling that stuff.
Edgefest, if that doesn't put
I know,
a fine point on the date.
Totally dating myself. It's true.
So let's circle back and have a little bit of an introduction for the purposes of the podcast.
Yeah.
So I want to welcome Emmie Tsumura to the Missing Witches podcast, but not to my life, because Emmie is a hometown witch. You're the first hometown witch that it has occurred to me to invite on the show, but now I'm we'll get Lisa, we'll get Traces, we'll get Lori, We'll make magic and music. Maybe we'll have a reunion on the show someday, because I think that gang, we were so lucky to be so it was this art gang of self-assured women, and we had our own space where we were safe to enact that, because Traces and I had that apartment, and Lisa had her place, and so on and so forth. So I think about that a lot as an amazing training ground to be a woman in her 40s.
It's true. It was like a witch incubator.
Yeah. What do you think?
Because I wasn't really I hadn't really accessed that part of me until I met you, really, because I'd been interested in all kinds of different things, but that was the time in my life where I was ooh, tarot cards, aromatherapy, and Traces introduced somebody to me that taught reflexology and so many things that completely changed my life in retrospect.
Yeah. And of course, Traces, who was our sort of resident plant witch, she had in our tiniest of apartments, it was always filled with plants. And she is now a professional farmer. It's these things that we do when we're just doing us if we're lucky, can like inform the rest of our lives, if we're lucky.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And especially, like I say, like having that space, you know? Yeah, I think about it a lot. I think about it a lot as, like I say, like a training ground to be a mature adult woman. I was not a mature adult woman then by any stretch of the imagination. I had a lot of learning to do, and Traces really taught me a lot. It didn't sink in until I had sort of, you know, moved out. And then I was like, oh, you know, I've apologized to her for the slob that I was when we were roommates, now that I'm a mature adult.
But you were like really owning that power even back then. I felt like whenever I was around you and you would sing, I would just be filled with this like, you know, like feminine energy and just like, but like bold, fearless. Like I did not have any of that like at all. And so that was, to me, that was just, it was a force. And like, I still get like chills thinking about your voice, like belting out like me and Bobby McGee. Like,
yeah,
you know.
I mean, thank you for that. That's really validating to hear, you know, because you know, Risa, my podcasting partner, and I, we talk all the time about just like taking up space, and that's something that she has given me some credit for too, is just like being loud, you know.
Yeah.
Just like saying fuck it and being loud, and if the neighbors notice, then like, oh well, you know, well, welcome to the city.
Yeah. Yep.
But you, to segue, are taking up space in a very different way. I didn't mean to start with Pigeons for the People.
Pigeons for the People.
But let's start with Pigeons for the People anyway, because you are doing installation work that is like so interesting. I'll let you describe it. I've talked enough.
Okay, yeah, Pigeons for the People was something that came up during COVID. That was sort of like the time, well, it still is COVID times, but I'd been drawing pigeons for at least a year and a half before the pandemic hit, but just a friend and I had like these great conversations about pigeons because we were both kind of obsessed with them, and just laughing at their quirkiness and appreciating their sort of like understated beauty. Like, I don't know if you've looked at them closely, but their colors are stunning. It's almost like holographic, you know, purples and teals and greens, and they're all individuals. And they don't get a lot of credit. They get, you know, they clean our streets, like meticulously clean all of the trash and the fast food bits, and, you know, but people hate on them. And so we were just calling them the working class bird. And so that was sort of how it started. But then, when after lockdown, I found myself drawing more pigeons because I had a lot more time, and also having face-to-face time with only pigeons for days, you know? So I have literally hundreds of drawings of pigeons. And so I was starting to feel like maybe I'm losing my mind. And so it was like, maybe you should stop drawing the pigeons. Because something's wrong. And then I woke up after, I must have been dreaming, and it was like, you know what? Stop drawing the pigeons, or like go big or go home. And then I was like, go big. And so I made one of them into like a human size, I guess, like 5.5 feet tall pigeon. And I made it all from my home printer, and I laminated it all. And then I thought, this can't be in my apartment, because my apartment is like 400 square feet, and this pigeon is like taking up way too much space. And then started thinking about this idea of essential workers and people who aren't appreciated. And there was a lot of fear and anxiety at the time when people were hoarding toilet paper and, you know, that whole time. And then I just was thinking, what does the world need? Like, what's missing from this conversation right now? And it was like healing and just a moment to breathe and sort of like be able to step outside yourself. And I thought, you know, maybe a 6-foot tall pigeon will help people to step outside themselves and think about it. So then that's how that started. And I put up the first pigeon kind of guerrilla style on a fence right outside No Frills. So it was on the No Frills property, and it thanked the grocery store workers.
It's like a speech bubble coming from the pigeon, if I recall. Yeah.
And so it was cool because I thought, you know, maybe they'll take it down because you can't normally install things onto private property. But I like that sort of like challenging that, like feeling where those edges are, and people loved it. And like the BIA was like tweeting photos, and it ended up being something that from what I know, the workers at the No Frills felt really good about it because they were the ones showing up every day, you know, doing the work, not getting paid more, putting themselves and their families at risk. And so after that feedback, I made 4 more. And so they were outside, like in different spots all around Toronto they actually lasted for most of the year. So yeah, and it just got a lot of good feedback, and people like it made people laugh. And so that, yeah.
Yeah. And I just love this like narrative of like an obsession becoming like almost a problem, and then going into the dreamscape, and then instead of it shutting down, it expanded it into this like large scale effort that then like legitimately changed people's day, and by extension their lives.
Wow. Yeah.
Right? I mean, that blows me away. And you see this with art and this relationship between art and activism, I think, all the time. Like, you just feel compelled to make something and you don't even really know why. And then the world kind of maybe tells you more why. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Yeah. I'm always driven in that way to make my art, like things social. And, yeah, I was listening to, I don't know, I think you can probably relate to this, but I was listening to an interview with Daniel Kaluuya from Get Out, the British actor, and Black Panther.
Yes. And Black Mirror. That's where I met him.
Oh, really?
Oh, he's in an episode of Black Mirror, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh my God, it's so good.
So he just, one thing he said really struck me. He used this phrase, simple special, and this idea to make things like, what was the other one he said? Accessible excellence. And I love this because, you know, we grew up in like South Schwa, and so like it's just like such a humble, sincere place to grow up, because like everyone makes fun of us and we make fun of ourselves just as much. And so moving away from Oshawa, going to university and like, you know, climbing the ivory tower and all that, I've known this for a long time now, that there's no point in staying there if you can't, or getting there if you can't apply that knowledge to the masses and like use that for everyday people and everyday conversations. And so that simple special thing is exactly what he was talking about. That how do you take those insights and that knowledge, and how does it help everyone, not just people, you know? So,
and it comes back to the humble pigeon too. Like, the reason you were obsessed with the pigeon in the first place was because people were like, "Oh, it's a nuisance," and you were like, "Actually, it's really fucking beautiful if you look at it." Yeah. I think a pigeon is very simple special.
It is very simple special. Yeah. Oh, the pigeons.
Right. So let me go to your bio, because there were so many things in there that I was like, ooh, ooh, ooh. So this is like from your artist bio. I'm just going to read a couple sentences and I'll let you expand if you don't mind.
Okay.
Guided by research into Japanese folk tales and personal ancestry, her being you, her work documents an ongoing process of negotiating Japanese settler colonial identity and relationships to the urban environment. Please expand.
Where do I start with that? It took me so long to kind of like whittle it down to that much. So I guess I could say that like the thread of my work has always been to find the freedom to be able to express myself fully as a basic thing. But you actually introduced me to Mayumi Oda, and I was like, it's amazing how the similarities in the way we work and the reasons why we make work. And so I was just totally blown away when you mentioned her to me. But she says, like, through my creative process, I've been creating myself. And so that really resonated with me. And the idea that, how do I want to create myself? Like, what's the next thing? Like, and the idea that the outside is a mirror to the inside, and the inside is the outside. So whatever I'm doing inside is going to come out in my work. So I think the work of identity and understanding that, figuring out like my positionality, and that I'm a Japanese Canadian settler who is living and working on stolen land. My family, we're all uninvited guests. And what that means for someone who's making art on this land, and what can you do about that? And so the first, like, and I have so much work to do, but it's like the first step is recognizing that identity. And I've had some amazing elders who have given me advice on this, because it's sort of like, where do you begin when, this history goes back, the work hasn't been done for generations. And I just, I had some like really wonderful people tell me, sorry, Amy, I'm like going all over the place here, but
I'm right here with you all over the place. I love it.
I know I'm seeing so many directions I could go with this, but I did a residency on Main Island, out on the West Coast, in 2019, and the elders there did some work on how settlers can find themselves on this land in a good way. And part of that is understanding your own ancestry, speaking to your own ancestral spirits. And because of this idea of like the mirrors and things, I'm thinking about mirrors a lot today, apparently, but that if you know your ancestral medicines and your ancestral wisdom, you can find that here. It's going to be here as well. So you just need to find the equivalent from what that wisdom and knowledge is, and find it again here. And if you talk to people, you'll know that this medicine, and like, I can't think of a good example right now, but this medicine in Japan is used for this ailment. And if you talk to people here, you'll be able to find the equivalent medicine, whether that's like calendula or, rose hips or like whatever it is, and sort of how to read those things. And it's like you're learning a whole new language in a way. So that was one of the things that I've been trying to do, is reach back into my ancestral wisdom. And yeah, so also so that I have something to bring to the table when I speak to people, like the first peoples of this land. It's like, I'm not coming just as myself, like, you know, I'm actually bringing this good stuff with me. Simply, like,
yeah, I'm not trying to colonize this event.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I don't know if that like explains that part, but that is why I'm doing so much work on. I have a series called Japanese Geometrics, and yeah, like we did a cool collaboration with Matthias Kahn from the Burning Hell just very recently that I'm so excited about.
Since you brought up Japanese Geometrics, this is some of my favorite work of yours. Listeners who aren't like looking at the show notes or Instagram or whatever right in this minute, they're like, and again, I don't want to be reductive to your work by comparing it to other people's work, but like listeners, if you could imagine like if Peter Max and Hodorowski coupled with Mayumi Oda to design stained glass windows. That's what they look like to me. They're so fucking beautiful, babe. Like, oh my God. Can you talk about and why you call them Japanese geometrics, and did that also come as an obsessive dream? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I guess Japanese Geometrics is probably, I don't think it's a great title for that series, but I just started working with, I found a dictionary of Japanese color combinations. And so I've been obsessed with,
listeners, like, I'm holding my chest so that you can't hear the beating of my heart through the microphone. Say again. A dictionary of
Japanese color combinations.
I'm dying.
And so I've been really trying to work with Japanese colors because those color combinations are really different from the color combinations you see here. It might be red, blue, yellow, gray, or something, but the tones of the colors are very different from what you would see in Western color combos. So I've been I created my own color palettes on Procreate, and which is a digital like design illustration software. And so that's kind of where it started, is just me playing. And I've needed a lot of play in my work recently because, and we're going to go into this.
I think that the elephant in the room just waved its trunk at us, right? The elephant in the room just waved its trunk. So yeah, I mean, you mentioned medicine, you mentioned play. Why is that so important for you right now?
So I've, as you know, I've been going through cancer treatment since last August. And so I've needed this kind of healing and play and having my work feel more joyful and also wanting to kind of put more joy out into the world, because people also need that. And me, having a cancer diagnosis is like, I know people aren't thinking this, but to me, it's like, another bad thing during the pandemic for other people as well. And I'm like, I don't want to be this person.
My daughter, my friend, my daughter, my friend, my sister, my lover is going through this during it. You're not thinking about yourself, but how other people are going to be extra sad during pandemic. Come on. But it's like, it's a compound interest kind of, right? Like,
yeah,
like it adds to the weight.
It does. And it's like, I just know from pre-diagnosis that people are already, weighted down with like way too much like collective grief and stress about money and just being traumatized by like the world, everything, you know, right now. And so I needed things to be lighter for myself, but I also know other people did too.
Yeah. And so, not to be too technical, but like, what does chemotherapy look like during a pandemic?
Oh, it's very lonely. Very, it was, to be honest, like terrifying and devastating at the same. It was just like, how am I going to do this by myself? And I know from talking to other people who've gone through it, it's generally not a fun experience, but you do get to bring a support person, or, you know, family members can come and visit while you're hooked up to the IV, and other people, you know, find friends in the chemo room because you're all going through the same thing. I have a friend's mother who went through treatment, and she told her family and friends not to come anymore because she's like, I want to talk to my chemo buds because they're the ones who really get what's happening, you know?
Yeah.
But I didn't get to have any of that because no one was allowed in the room. And so it was started with panic, and then it was all about channeling my creativity to figure out, like, how am I going to be in this room and sit there hooked up for hours, you know, every week, and not fall apart, basically.
Yeah.
So
how did you?
So I ended up arranging for phone calls because that was just like the easiest thing. But it was great because the first phone call I had with a friend, my friend Jillian, she took me for a walk. She was up at her cottage, and she took me for a walk at the beach. And
like with her phone, sort of like a video FaceTime, but
yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so we were talking face to face at first, and then she flipped the camera so that it was facing the water. And so I just saw her feet, and I heard the splashing, and I saw the waves, and I heard the sounds and the wind, like all of it. And I realized that seeing water was so healing, even on screen. And that was just like a profound moment where I was like, wow, like water is so powerful, but even watching water on a screen helps me to regulates my breath. And I don't know, I haven't talked about this yet, so forgive my like messy explanation, but yeah, regulates my breath, and also just the healing vibes. It was like, you know, somehow the water's like, you're going to be okay. Or there was just like feelings of healing for, yeah.
I think all witches would agree with you there.
All witches would.
Yeah, like
right?
I don't think you'll find a single witch who's not full body nodding as they listen to this right now. Yeah.
And so like I had this quote, because I know that you love Audre Lorde, the Lord. And I've been reading the Cancer Journals by Audre Lorde. I don't know if you've read it.
I'm still working my way through it. I have to put it down frequently.
Right?
Yeah.
So a dear friend of mine sent this to me just as I finished the treatment. And I was trying to understand, like, trying to process it. And how do you process something like this? How do you process something like this? But the introduction, can I just read the introduction to you?
Please do.
So it's just like the first little bit, but she writes, each woman responds to the crisis that breast cancer brings to her life out of a whole pattern, which is the design of who she is and how her life has been lived. The weave of her everyday existence is the training ground for how she handles crisis. And it goes on. But as I was thinking about doing this podcast, I was thinking about my hometown witches, including you and Trey and Lisa, and how that meeting you at that time in my life led to a whole series of other interests that I had, even when we'd lost track of each other for a while, and having the skills to channel non-human things, like spirits, and like understanding that, believing like innately in different forms of healing and the power of water, like all of those things came into play because I had a total breakdown getting this diagnosis. But then once that sort of leveled out a little bit, but I'm still operating from panic mode, right? Constantly being triggered by new appointments and new like things in my patient portal. But this is the stuff that kept me making art, knowing that was healing, kept me like knowing that creativity was going to save my mental health. And this is really has so much to do with like meeting people like you and having that base and building on that for the last like how many years of my life. And, you know, meeting the other people other witches along the way. Like, so I just really, I feel so, I don't like the word blessed for some reason, but I do feel so fortunate and blessed, I guess, to have like met like the gems of Oshawa, which was not easy to do, you know, like I searched a long time for you.
Yeah. And that's like kind of part of the thing about like, you know, I can like do things and I make things and whatever, but like some of my highest magic is like, just to go back to the hometown, like having a wall to hang that painting that Lisa made that was like this figure. And again, we were young women, you know, we were, you know, in our early 20s, late teens even at the time. And Lisa had painted this large scale painting of a woman with just an absolute gaping vagina.
Gaping vagina.
Just an absolute hairy bushed gaping vagina. And I hung it on my wall because it was my apartment and I don't care what you think. And you know, and so to me, once again, like that is also high magic. Like not doing the painting is high magic, but like reserving a place on your wall for somebody else's crazy painting is also very high magic.
I love that. I remember that painting. I remember seeing it being like, I don't know.
Yeah, like the face wasn't beautiful. Like it wasn't beautiful. The painting was beautiful, but like the woman, we'll say woman, was like not beautiful. It was very like confrontational.
Yeah.
You know? Like what I really loved about it. And, you know, to be able to have that hanging on my wall was like a declaration, you know. Almost.
Absolutely a declaration.
Yeah. So I'm so glad that like, you know, that space creating that we do together really has like reverberations.
With the Audre Lorde connection, it's just I'm going through this book and I'm just I'm feeling it because I don't feel the word warrior in me yet. And the more I read, the more Audrey's identifying me as a warrior in according to, you know, what she's calling a warrior. And then I'm just like, am I? No. But it's hard to own that kind of power.
Well, here's my thinking on that. If Audre Lorde says something, it's fucking true. So you can stop hemming and hawing about that thing because Audrey said it. So
here's the thing she says, like, she just talks about how different women deal with, like cope with cancer diagnosis. So that could be by continuing to work and not telling anyone. Like that's a kind of courage, and that's, or some people just choose to lean on other people and break down and just be in their sort of authentic selves. And this part, she says, like, for some women, it means the warrior's painstaking examination of yet another weapon, unwanted but useful. And that's the one that resonated with me.
You kind of touched on, like, I think, the holy triangle, like, of healing is like friends, art, nature,
and music.
We'll lump music into art so that we can keep it as a triangle. But tell me more.
Yeah, we'll keep it as a triangle. Yeah. Yeah. You could take that part.
No. I love it. I love the messy working out of ideas in real time. That's one of my favorite things in the universe. Like, let me say something that I've never even thought before. It's not going to come out perfect the first time ever. But yeah. Tell me about music. Tell me about how music is so healing.
Well, even the Burning Hell and their music sort of coming to like heal me at a time like this. The Burning Hell, they've been friends of mine for years, like 2 decades at least. And they recorded a live album in Engelthal in Germany a while ago, and it was unreleased, and they decided to release the album now as a 16-track album, and they wanted to raise money to help me with cancer recovery costs and everything. And so we decided to do this as a fundraiser for me, but also I'm not super comfortable with like being the center of things, and it's really hard to receive things, gifts and love and all that. So and I do believe that it's always better when you share the love. So we're going to donate half of that to the Encampment Support Network, which is going to help people who are living in tents right now, and people who have been evicted from their tents by the city of Toronto. Barf. Mm-hmm. And so so I'm pretty excited. I hope lots of people buy the album. It's a pay what you can donation for the album, and then 50% of that will go to me and 50% to ESN.
And if you buy the album, you also get entered into a fabulous draw.
That's the part I didn't mention. Yes. So then Matthias from the Burning Hell reached out to make one of the Japanese geometric pieces into stained glass. Like
its truest form. If you ask me, I was like, yes. Oh my God. Thank God.
It's magical. Like, it's exactly what it wanted to be when it grew up, and it happened. I'm blown away by it. I really just want somebody I know to win it, because I want to see it. I want to see it in the window, and I want to see the sun shining through it.
Yeah. And either way, you get a fantastic album from a fantastic band. So we'll put the links for all that stuff in the show notes, and listeners, definitely check that out. What about, do you have any other work that's for sale that people can buy if they want to support the arts? We won't say you, because I know that makes you uncomfortable. But if people want to generally support the arts by purchasing some of your work, can they also do that?
I actually don't have anything up for sale at the moment, but if people want to check out my Instagram or my website, I'm always up for collaborations, and one of my things this year is I want to start a store, because I need to really move away from the work I was doing diagnosis and pre-pandemic, because I just can't go back to that after going through treatment, and I just need to move forward, and like I want to work on my art more.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are feeling that way without even the chemotherapy push to do something different. Like, I think this has been a very awakening, exhausting, but also awakening, if that makes sense. I know a lot of people are either by choice or not by choice are kind of changing track right now. And I think it's good. Like, most people I know are like getting further out of the grind instead of further into it if they can, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's been, yeah, that's a good way to, a good word, I think, is this awakening where people are like, actually, now that things might be reopening, I don't want to go back to that.
Yeah.
What am I going to, like, you know, and people have been, like, Matthias learned how to do stained glass over the pandemic. Like, people have, you know, learned these amazing new skills, and we don't have to go back to what it was.
Yeah.
And we don't want to. Like, it wasn't particularly great for people.
No,
before.
I mean, I think it's no accident that like all of these multiple protests happened. Of course, like, you know, George Floyd, but you know, George Floyd was certainly not the first Black man to have been even on video being killed by police. But it happened in this moment where people couldn't go to work. And so they could go out and protest. And I think this is what's happened when we get removed from this, like, again, the capitalist grinding, exhausting system. Then we're like, hey, wait a fucking second. Whether that's I need to go out into the street and start fucking shit up, or I need to maybe get more art into my life, or I need to change my career goals.
Yeah. And things are, you know, focused on like developing the self, and also people are like, how do I practice self-care now, you know, because people have been realizing like how depressed they are because they have a moment to stop and realize that they're not happy in their regular grind. Yeah.
When you do get a moment to stop and think, then you're like, oh.
Yeah, right.
Which is why the great they doesn't want us to stop and think, right?
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, but I will say, like, if you decide to do a series of prints, if you go to the pharmacy and print them yourself, like, put me on the waiting list for some Japanese geographics, like their geographics. Geographics.
That's the next project.
I'm like, your national geographics, geometrics. Yeah, like I need one in my house. I don't know if I'll ever be able to afford it as a stained glass, but like, please let me know if you decide to.
I will,
physical
for sure.
Copies. I don't have enough Bitcoin to buy. What are the FTs?
An NFT. I'm actually just signing up for that. I'm waiting to be accepted. I'm excited.
Well, hopefully by this summer you'll be lousy with money from digital art tokens somehow. What a world we live in, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully the digital art tokens will really change.
Yeah. About music though, I thought you might dig this, but when I was going through treatment, I've been really healthy my whole life, so this was all like a huge shock to me. But I had my first MRI and first CAT scan, CT scan, and like so many firsts that it was like constant new scary stuff. But the MRI machine, I don't want to say loved it, but I kind of liked it. Like, it was like, it felt like somebody's like sound installation. These like almost like dial-up modem sounds, and like grr, 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 like something like Nine Inch Nails-y. I don't know, but I was humming along to the sounds, and I was like, I wonder if they noticed that I'm singing with the MRI machine. But and so that, and then while I was in radiation treatment, I was We Can Be Heroes, like Bowie was my go-to song every day. And it always ended at the lyrics like, I wish I could swim like dolphins can swim. And then they would come in and say, "You're all done." And that was the other inspiration for the newer work, like Japanese geometrics and some of my new stuff, because it's all brighter than my other stuff. Like there's something that's like sound, like injected with like sound and radiation, something like there's something that it's definitely inspired by those machines and the way like my body was processing it, I think.
Yeah. I mean, this is maybe a bit of conversation for like a joint and a campfire, like midnight. But I was thinking about you and cancer and Japan and radiation and what a strange conceptual relationship a cancer survivor who is also of Japanese descent must have with radiation. Is that too like I sound like I'm on mushrooms right now, or is that like a real thing?
Do you want to do mushrooms and talk about this? Because I would.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Because here's another detail. I was organizing an event for August 6th, the Memorial Day for the date the bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, and I had my friends Ogechi Dakwe, who are an indigenous like woman drum group, and then this collective of young Japanese Canadians, and we did a little opening and closing ceremony on like live but online for the event on August 6th. I found out about my diagnosis that day, 2 hours before the event started, and I had to host it. There's no words like how it was like on that day, 2 hours before this event, that I was doing anti-nuclear, like it was a huge day, the biggest event I've ever done. And the coincidence of that is just too much. Like, I just don't even know how to process that. So maybe it's a campfire, like witchy conversation we can have. But
yeah, like I feel like it's going to be many hours pulling those threads and re-knitting them together into something we can understand in our human way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I really think that psychedelics would probably help.
Yes, I think so
too. So, again, I don't want to exhaust you. I don't want to keep you. I'm going to ask you this last question because I feel like it relates to pigeons and David Bowie. Emmie, how can we be heroes?
How can we be heroes? So that's a good question. That's a really good question. I think that, I mean, this is a question I'll have to think about more, but I think the first thing is, for me, is just learning how to find your own power. And for me, that's it's come to me through the work I've been doing on how to connect myself as a settler to the land, and learning about my ancestors and learning how to channel that ancestral DNA wisdom, blood wisdom. There was this great quote by Crazy Horse. I'm sure that you are familiar, but Chief Crazy Horse, a Lakota chief, has a dream where he goes to the land of where only spirits exist, and then realizes that is the real world, and that everything that we see here is just shadow, and it's a shadow of that real world. And that just affected me so deeply, thinking about just flipping everything on its head and knowing that the spirits are real, and that intuition and the things that you learn in dreams, and like just the reality of those things. And one of the elders out west, also, we were having a conversation about, because I was having trouble believing some of the messages that were coming to me and the thoughts I was having. And she looked me like right in the eye, her like eyes that are like the deepest, like darkest oceans. And it scared me, but she said, like, Emmie, you have to believe in magic. And it was like, you have to believe in magic, or how do you expect the spirits to be able to talk to you? And it made so much sense, and it kind of jolted me into like really believing that as I'm looking for my ancestors, they're also looking for me. And it's like
listeners, Emmie is reacting to my whole body reaction to what she just said. My arms just started moving like I couldn't. So as you go looking for your ancestors, know that your ancestors are also looking for you. I think that's how we can be heroes, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's where you're gonna find, for me, that's where I'm gonna find my strength, and that's where I am building that inner strength, and that's what's gonna be able to allow me to help other people, is to stand in my own truth and be proud of who I am, like unabashedly myself, and all those things that we're not taught to do.
I really just can't thank you enough for being with me here today. Thank you. Again, can you hit us with your socials, your website, anything that you think you can tagline for our listeners to be able to follow you and get to know you and your work better?
Yeah, so my Instagram is at msakko, EMSAKKO. And if you go there, my website is linked.
Yeah, and if you follow us on Instagram, we'll be bombarding you with this for many days, because okay. I just want there's so much of Emmie's work that I want to share with all of you. So watch for our IG stories if you follow us on Instagram, because the work is amazing. The witch is amazing. Strength is amazing. Like, I'm so amazed and grateful and so fucking proud of you, babe. So fucking proud of you.
I'm so fucking proud of you. Like, this is an amazing podcast. How did I get here?
How did we get here?
How did we get here?
Yeah, but I'm going to tell you right now, so mote it be. We're putting it in the universe. A bag of mushrooms, Traces' farm, and we're just going to have to make that happen.
Absolutely. I'm down.
Good. Listeners, maybe we'll invite you to. Stay posted.
You must be a witch.
If you want to support the Missing Witches Project, you can do so by buying our book, reviewing it on Amazon and Goodreads, using offer code Missing Witches when you shop at Foxglove Farm, become a Patreon patron, or pick up some Missing Witches merch at TeePublic.